Hey, my name is Shayla. I am the community health fellow with New Voices Are Rising, and this is my summer project. It's going to be based off Baby Hunter's Point and Pinona Justices. Next slide. This is my presentation outline. So I'm going to talk about environmental justice and community health. I'm going to give an intro to Baby Hunter's Point. I'm going to talk a little bit about sea level rise, then give an intro to Pinole, compare and contrast both Pinole and Baby Hunter's Point. Then I'll talk about some solutions and we'll have time for Q&A. Next slide. So in this slide, I'm going to be talking about environmental justice and community health. So what is environmental justice? Environmental justice is a right to a safe, productive, and sustainable environment for all in which some cases isn't in reach for some people due to their income and or race. What does this mean for communities and people living in Baby Hunters Point? This means most low-income and BIPOC folks are forced to move into these places that are filled with refineries and Superfund sites that can and are harming those who live in those places. Some examples of communities that are being impacted from toxic sites are Richmond, Oakland, and San Francisco, which Baby Hunters Point is in. So let's get to know Baby Hunters Point. Next slide. Baby Hunters Point in San Francisco was transformed from a coastal grassland to an industrial area during World War II. It faced racial discrimination and environmental issues due to the proximity of Naval Radiological Defense Laboratory. The naval the Navy tested their atomic bombs out on the ocean. After they built the radiological laboratory, more tests started happening. Over the years, Baby Hunters Point continued to battle high rates of illness and environmental pollution, with the neighborhood being identified as having the highest contamination risk in San Francisco. Baby Hunters Point residents have frequent asthma-related emergency room visits, but the community prioritized community solutions such as affordable housing, community well-being, and public oversight. In California, communities of color are 5 times more likely than the general population to live within half a mile of polluted places like San Francisco Shipyard. But was it ever officially redlined? Yes. Next slide. In 1937, the Homeowners Loan Corporation made a redlining map to determine who would receive loans and housing investment. These decisions were made based on people's race and income. Baby Hunters Point received the lowest possible grade. This made it harder for areas to rebound from the Depression and made it very difficult to buy homes in this area. So now that we know a little bit more about Baby Hunters Point and how toxic their environment is, let's talk about some stats of Baby Hunters Point. Next slide. So this is Virus screen, and basically when you search up a place, like I did with Baby Hunters Point, it tracks how polluted the area is. So as you can see, the asthma rate here in Baby Hunters Point is 98%. Baby Hunters Point is predominantly African American and people of color. Here is like you can see that there's a pocket of red that's surrounded with orange and yellow spaces. Residents in Baby Hunters Point have significantly high cancer risk, especially for lung and breast cancer. On the side here, you can see that Baby Hunters Point is highly polluted. Let's talk about that. Next slide. Um, Baby Hunters Point has bad air quality due to the Superfund sites like the Point Naval Shipyard and Dorn's Ingredient. Activists are concerned about the toxic dust from the nearby construction project. Residents constantly breathe in toxic dust because they live near or right next to it. The neighborhood is bordered by the San Francisco port and surrounded by two major freeways that with heavy diesel truck traffic. Whether air quality is getting worse by the day, so is their water quality. Historically, their water quality has been bad because of the shipyards, radioactive and toxic bombs. The radioactive toxic bombs have contaminated the soil and water with radionuclides, heavy metals, and petroleum fuels, among other toxic compounds. When sea levels rise, all of those toxic bombs and chemicals that are in the water will rise, and one, cause flooding, and two, bring all those chemicals up, letting it become exposed. Before I mention more about sea level rise, what is sea level rise? Next slide. Sea level rise refers to the average increase in the water levels of the Earth's ocean. Over the last century, sea level rise has increased due to burning fossil fuels and global warming. Baby Hunter's Point is at risk of exposure to flooding, storm surges, and toxic pollutants. Groundwater is being pushed closer to the surface by rising sea levels and may release dangerous chemicals. Challenges from sea level rise to Baby Hunter's Point include more flooding, coastal erosion, infrastructure damage, displacement, and economic losses. With that said, being forced to leave can cause homelessness, health risks, emotional stress, and so much more that can affect them and their families. Around 2050, in Baby Hunter's Point, water will rise up 19 inches. 20.6% of properties in Pinole will be flooded by 2050. Now that we're talking about Pinole, let's get to know Pinole. Next slide. So here in Pinole, you can see that it's a mixture of green and yellow and a small pocket of orange. Pinole isn't as polluted as Baby Hunter's Point, as you can see. Pinole, like many other cities and neighborhoods, may not have been officially redlined like Baby Hunter's Point because redlining is based on the combination of factors including demographics and income levels. So in this pie chart, you can see that it's 43% white, 20% Asian, 19% Hispanic, 10% African American, and 6% other. You can see here that it's predominantly white here living in Pinole. So now that we know a little bit more about Pinole, let's compare and contrast. Next slide. So as we open the Pinole map, right off the bat, we could see a lot of green that represents parks and green spaces. If we scroll down a little bit, we could see our toxic sites. And the darker one is a Chevron refinery. There are a lot of refineries in Contra Costa County, but yeah, the Burlington Northern is a train that passes right behind my house more than 2 times a day. The WWTP is a sewage treatment plant that is walking distance from my house. If you scroll a little bit more down, you can see that there are clinics. If we were to be in an emergency, we would have to travel 20 to 25 minutes to get to the hospital in Richmond. Now that we transition to Big Hunter Point map, we could see right off the bat that there aren't many green spaces like Pinole. If we scroll down a little bit more, you can see that there are 3 times more toxic spaces than Pinole. And keep in mind that that massive freeway does count as a polluted source. If you scroll down, you can see some clinics and health centers, and they can help with like immediate injuries. Overall, Baby Hunter's Point is worse than pollution, but better with hospitals. In this next slide, I could talk about how we could support Baby Hunter's Point. The first thing we could do to help Baby Hunters Point is holding EPA accountable for failing to get the regulator and hold the Navy accountable for not doing their job of cleaning the naval shipyard. We can also protest and speak to the government and community leaders, even though that hasn't been successful, but we can still keep trying. We can also educate the youth, share info like post on socials, make flyers, or even just talk about it with our friends and family. Thank you so much. That was my presentation. Yeah, any